Hi everybody! I'm going to share with you my journey from London, United Kingdom to Hong Kong during the COVID-19 pandemic. I flew on the 9 p.m. British Airways flight from Heathrow to Hong Kong International on Sunday, December 6th. The first place I went to was the COVID testing center at Heathrow, as the Hong Kong government requires passengers from high-risk countries, such as the UK, to have a negative COVID test prior to boarding the plane. I had previously booked this test online for 5:45 p.m. because the website said the test would take 1 hour, but mine took approximately 2 hours for a result. So essentially here, the nurse took me in and did a few swabs of both my nostrils and said I'd have results back in an hour to an hour and a half, but that was obviously not the case. I ended up lining up for check-in at around 8 p.m. and I wasn't even the last batch of passengers waiting for their test result. I wasn't able to check in online before my flight, so I was really stressed at this point. So I finally made it to my gate with like 10 minutes to spare. They boarded by row number starting at the back of the plane instead of by groups. I'm assuming for better social distancing measures.
Customers sitting in rows 48 through to 53. Please make your way to board this service to gate.
The flight was fine. It was a pretty full flight. I slept for most of it. I felt pretty safe because everybody on my flight would have tested negative before boarding the flight. Each passenger was given a personal hygiene pack that contained 1 disposable packet of hand sanitizer and 1 alcoholic wipe, which I used to wipe my seat area down with. The meal service was alright. I was offered a variety of drink options and 2 meals. First was a hot dinner of chicken with potato or vegetarian pasta, and shortly before landing I was offered a sandwich. After disembarking the plane, the first thing they made us complete was the HKG Department of Health Declaration Form, which produced a QR code on our phones. I wanted to do this when I was at home in London, however, you can't, because the form asks for a seat number, which I didn't know until I checked in. Here's a screenshot of my QR code, censored for personal information, of course. This was scanned multiple times at the airport. Next, I took the train shuttle, which took me to the main part of the terminal, where there was another check to make sure I had downloaded the Stay Home Safe app. After that, we went through a few temperature checks, another security check, and countless lines. The first thing they checked was that I could be reached on my reported cell phone number. I then proceeded to join another line where they put my tracker wristband on me. After a lot of waiting, I reached the desk where they gave me a brown envelope of my quarantine guidelines, COVID-19 reading material, and they also gave me my saliva COVID test. By now, we were 2 hours post-land and disembarkment, and a lot of people were so tired that they started sitting down while waiting. Here, I was given a cubicle to do my saliva COVID test, but because I landed at around 5:30 p.m. and didn't get the test until around 8:30 Hong Kong time, I ended up having to spend the night at a government holding hotel in Tsing to wait for the results. Usually, I've heard, if you land earlier in the day, you wait for your results at the airport. By the time I was done my COVID test, it was already 9 p.m. The airport provided some bottled water and Ritz lemon crackers when I was waiting to be released to go to baggage claim. It wasn't until around 9:30 before we were released to immigration and baggage claim. I then took a shuttle to the government holding hotel with other passengers originating from various other locations at around 10 p.m. I felt a little uneasy because I know there were flights from other countries arriving in Hong Kong that evening, and by sharing a shuttle with passengers from different flights who were also waiting for their COVID test increases exposure greatly. I don't have any footage from the lobby, as we weren't allowed to film the government holding hotel. Upon arrival, we checked in and we were given a fish dinner. Don't worry, they had vegetarian options too. The Gov Hotel was grim, but alright for one night only. Each passenger or quarantine party, because you can quarantine with friends who flew on the same flight as you, were all assigned a room. There were 2 single beds, a working washroom, a box TV that didn't work, and an ocean view in my room. Needless to say, the government hotel was just grim and quite dusty and dirty. Waking up the next morning on day 1 of quarantine, here is a clear picture of the view. My night spent at the Gov Hotel counted towards my 14-day quarantine, as they base it off of the date you arrive in Hong Kong. Breakfast was an unappetizing burger bun thing which I didn't eat because it was cold. They called the landline in my hotel room at around 11:45 a.m. telling me that I could leave and go to my quarantine hotel. I took the MTR to my quarantine hotel location as they offered a free shuttle to the nearby Tsingyi MTR station. Some people took cabs or their parents picked them up, but I was not as lucky. What a real treat to see such a clean train compared to the London Tube. So I made it to my own hotel at around 2 p.m., but actually during my journey from the Gov Hotel to my hotel, I got a text reminding me to start the stay-at-home app because you don't start it at the government hotel. Anyways, continuing with my room tour. So here is my spacious washroom with ample supply of toilet paper and toiletries. Next, here is my lovely king bed and living area for the next 13 days. The view is quite open and looks out to Sai Ying-pun and Saiwan area. And I also have a mini fridge and kettle that I didn't film. So this is the app I had to download as per government guidelines. I started the partial setup for the app at the airport as I had to link the QR code on my wristband to my app. So like I said before, I did not activate the app at the government holding hotel, but I started it at my own quarantine hotel. So when I got to my own hotel, I opened the app, it told me to hold my wristband close to my phone, then it told me to walk around for 60 seconds. It took less than 60 seconds to set up, and that was it, I was done. They called me at around 4 p.m. to check if I was at my quarantine hotel and if everything was fine. So I'm here at my own quarantine hotel, and I'm just going to go through what was given to me in the brown envelope. So I was given some information about the Stay at Home Safe app, and how to use the wristband and stuff like that. 2 masks. This is more information about the app. This is my quarantine form. Just some information about compulsory quarantine and their hours. This is, because I flew from a high-risk country, I need a COVID test on day 12 of my quarantine, so that's just some information about that in different languages. This was a document, some information about the holding center, which is the government hotel in Tsingyi that we stayed in, so just some information about that. I had to document how I got to my quarantine location, and just a booklet that I obviously didn't read about COVID-19, because it's mainly about quarantining at home with your family. On day 12, I got a deep throat saliva COVID test, similar to the one I got at HK Airport. As pictured, this test came with testing guidelines, instructions, and a consent form. Thanks for watching, and stay safe and safe travels.